With clicker training, we always offer choice in any activity, and cues are really more suggestions than commands. So I thought it might be interesting to illustrate when the horses actually say no to an activity. So it's one thing to offer choice, it's another thing to respect a no when they say it. So this is a couple of examples of how my horses say no. So you just saw how Tornado usually responds to me getting up onto the mounting block. He usually lines himself right up and lets me get on. In this occasion, he does line himself up, but as soon as I put my foot in the stirrup, he walks off, which in fact he's actually never done before, so I was quite surprised. And interestingly, he walks over to a stationary target, as if to say, I'm willing to do something, but I'm not willing to do that. And he never changed his mind on that. He actually stayed with a no on that decision. This is Reuben in the early spring when I took him out to work in the round pen, which is something that we'd been doing regularly at the time. And he right away is looking more alert and more stressed than usual. And I actually think it is the camera itself. You see right now he's looking directly at the camera, and it's an automatic camera that kind of spins and does its own zooming and moving around. So I think that set him off a bit. Now he does walk forward when I offer my hand as a target, but only to a point, and I give him a treat for that, but he doesn't offer any more forward movement. The round pin is just on the right of the screen, not far away at all at this point. I don't think you can see it in the camera at all. So I do put a little pressure on by walking forward, and you can see now he's looking around at everything. I think that's a bit of trigger stacking from the camera itself, that now he's alert to all things, any noises or movements in the trees or anywhere else. So I do move over to see if he wants to come back towards the barn, but he doesn't actually give me a lot of information about that. He's just pretty much planted himself at this point. Again, I am putting on a bit of pressure by standing forward, and that's not really what I would want to be doing. If I had reflected on that, I would not be standing where I was standing, but that is what I did. So now again I offer him to go back to the barn, and he quite happily moves forward there, but takes one last look at the camera, which probably moved when he moved, so it alerted him again to it. And this is quite typical for him. He's quite a nervous horse, so any change in the environment can set him off enough that he doesn't want to do anything in that environment. I've just gone to pick something up off the ground, but you can see that he's happily marching off back to the barn. And this is what he's usually like. This is a more typical beginning to a training session. I take him out, I don't even have a halter on him, and he's quite happy to walk along. And in fact, we're walking right past the very camera that he was spooking at in the previous video clip. So, different day, different horse. This is a different occasion, and I am wanting to ride, so I get up on the mounting block. Sorry about the camera angle here, just does what it does. But I get on the mounting block, which is their cue to come over and line up for riding, and nothing happens. So I stand there for a little while, and eventually I sit down. I really stood there longer than I should have. It's a cue, and if they don't respond to it right away, then I should stop doing it. But I stayed standing, and then I just sat down, and you can see just on the right now, Reuben is grazing and ambling his way over at a very slow pace. It's not uncommon for Reuben to say no to riding, but I think in this case, as in probably the previous case with Tornado, they weren't out on that grass all the time, And I think it was just too interesting to be grazing. Then usually Reuben will actually choose an activity over grazing, but I think on this day it was just too appealing to be eating grass. He did eventually amble over a little bit closer, but he didn't line up for my mounting, and he just continued to graze. Here's him on another day when he is saying yes, and gives you an example of how he would usually respond to me getting on the mounting block. So he would just line himself up. So that's how my horses say no, and I'd love to hear how yours say no. It definitely beats bucking and taking off, which is what I used to have. So now I'm really happy to have a way of communicating so that they can let me know how they're feeling and what they're up for.